of you that have been watching my learning tutorials on Adorama TV, thanks for joining me again. And if we haven't been introduced, my name is Emily Teague. I'm a portrait and fashion photographer based out of Brooklyn, New York. Today, I get to talk about something that sparks a lot of joy in my heart, and that is fashion photography, specifically how to create a fashion editorial. As I was planning on what I wanted to cover in this video, I asked myself what some of the questions I had were when I was first starting fashion photography. I also went to my Facebook group, Fashion and Portrait with Emily Teague, and I asked my members in there what they were interested in learning. Then I kind of just put all those points together and built my talking points off of that. So I really hope this video is helpful for you. If there's anything I didn't cover though, please ask me in the comment section below, or you can just say hi. I've really appreciated reading your comments and just very grateful for the kindness that I've experienced from Adorama TV's community. With that done, why don't we get started? Let's start with the basics. What does a fashion editorial typically look like? Usually you're creating an editorial for a magazine or digital publication. There tends to be 6 to 8 different looks and some kind of element that ties everything together. This element can be anything from wardrobe to makeup, hairstyle, a prop, or even just color tying everything together. Good fashion editorials tell a story that your viewer can pick up on. For example, here's a fashion editorial I shot in the desert outside of Los Angeles. This exclusive editorial was shot for the publication Fashion Gone Rogue, and we shot 6 different looks for it. The theme of this was Desert Queen. I wanted to portray a story that kind of had this juxtaposition of bohemian vibes meets opulence. So my style pulled a mix of eclectic prints, dazzling gems, and detailed textures for the shoot. I imagine this woman who's kind of an outcast, but she's the queen of outcasts, living in this dry and barren land and collecting all the beautiful things that her people can find her. I think it's really important to have fun and create these detailed stories as you're deciding what you want your shoot to look like. Your viewer might never know what exactly is in your head, but they can also have their own interpretations, and they'll be able to see the connecting elements that you had to tell the story. Next up, where is your editorial going to live? Option 1, a magazine can come to you and ask you to create an editorial for them, which is preferable just because that probably means they have some budget for you. Option 2, you can go to a magazine and pitch a proposal, and if they approve it, you can request something called a pull letter or a letter of responsibility. This basically verifies that you are shooting for a particular publication, and it also allows your stylist to pull from different fashion brands. Option 3 is submitting to magazines after you've already shot your editorial and hoping that they'll accept it. And option 4 is going and finding magazines with open submissions. There's a site called Caviar, which is widely used by photographers to submit to publication, and it's a very great resource. The one thing I will warn about is that there are magazines on there that will request money to be featured in their magazine, and you don't want to get involved with those. Please know your value. One of the most important parts of any photo shoot is your mood board. So let's say that you've gone to a magazine and you're pitching them a proposal. You're going to want to include a mood board so that they know the feel of what you're going to shoot. This is also really beneficial for your team members so they know what kind of hair and makeup you want, what kind of styling you want, what kind of mood the model should portray. And it also just keeps you consistent in what you're trying to achieve. So let's go look at a couple different mood boards and dissect them. So here is the first mood board that I'm going to show you. This is actually the mood board that we are going to be using for our photo shoot today. So this is kind of a mix of Victorian opulence meets 70s grunge. I kind of imagine these rich kids at a party, and you can see like there's kind of this somber feel, a little bit of apathy. We have these really rich colors. I'm really excited to see what my stylist Jessie pulls today for this one. Let's look at my next board. So this one is totally different. This is my mood board Rosé. It's super feminine. We have all these really soft colors, pastels, a lot of pink and white. The fabric is really delicate. For my model, when she is looking at this mood board to try to understand what emotion I want portrayed, I think this will be really helpful for her. Let's look at another. This one is Bohemian Autumn. This is one that I just really love the aesthetic of this. Very bohemian vibes, lots of layers, cozy. This would make for a good fall editorial. And I think for my stylist especially, seeing all the different clothing in here, seeing that a lot of it is from Free People, that's gonna help her as well. Let's look at one more. My last one is a mood board for a jewelry shoot. There's a lot of gold in here, both makeup and jewelry wise. So when I'm talking to my makeup artist, there's a few specific photos that I can show her in here where she can kind of get an idea of what I'm looking for. It's also going to help my stylist when she's pulling jewelry. And for my model, it shows it's a very serious kind of mood in here. So that'll help her as well. But I really love creating mood boards. It's so important. It's helpful for everyone on the team, and it's also very, very helpful for you as a photographer. So let's talk about your team. You may be a fantastic photographer, but you also need a fantastic team. Every member of your team is so incredibly important. You have to understand that you cannot do this on your own. So we have a photographer, that's you. We have your model, your makeup artist, your hairstylist. So your hair and makeup artist might be the same person. We have a fashion stylist, and we have an assistant. Another really important piece to think about before your photo shoot is to have a call sheet. I usually send these out about 2 days before my photo shoot, and they have the information of everyone on my team on there, as well as my phone number and email address. I also like to include mood boards on my call sheets, so everyone just is reminded again of what we're trying to achieve the day of the shoot. I also included a line just for my model, just in case there's anything that I want her to bring. So why don't we look at one that I've created in the past real quick. So here is an example of a past call sheet that I've created. You can see at the top I have used my logo just to brand it. I removed the date and the address just because y'all don't need to know that. I've also removed all the phone numbers from everyone. A quick other thing to note is normally I won't include the model's personal phone number, but I will include her or his agent's phone number. I'm gonna scroll down here. And you can see I have a cat model included. I'll actually show you guys the final photos from this shoot. It was a really fun one. I like to include a mood board and a link to it. And I also include a checklist for the model. So again, nude thongs, nude nails, really simple for this one. Now I will show you guys the final photos from this shoot. So here are the photos attached to that call sheet. This was for the campaign launch of Elinchrome's ELC 125 and ELC 500. These were some really fun photos to create. I'll show you a couple of them. Here's the first one, our second one, our third one, and that kind of shows you an idea of how that call sheet matches up with the final photos. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to do a photo shoot here today. It's going to be a smaller editorial. Typically there's 6 to 8 looks, but today we're just going to have 4. My model is going to be my best friend / roommate, Brandy Nicole, and my stylist is going to be Jessie Ajluni, who I've worked with for 2 years now. She is a stylist with over 10 years experience in the industry. She's the former fashion editor at Hearst International, as well as a former fashion editor at Du Jour magazine. She's someone with a lot of experience and knowledge, and I'm excited for you guys to meet her. So let's go do that now. Jessie, I am so happy to have you on set with us today. I always love working with you, but today I'm excited to also introduce you to Adorama's audience too.
Oh, well, I'm excited to be here, and it's always a pleasure to get to work with you too.
And I was just telling my friend the other day, we've been working together for 2 years now.
Yeah, well, and we were introduced by Brandy.
My roommate, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's fun that this is kind of like coming full circle.
It is.
We had a lot of questions. I asked some friends if they had questions about styling. I actually asked my Facebook community as well what kind of questions they had, and so I figured I would dive right into them if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm excited to answer them.
Cool. So question number 1 is, before a shoot, how many days does it normally take you to pull clothes?
I mean, it really depends on kind of the scale of the shoot. So, you know, for today we had 4 looks, so it was a little bit of a smaller scale shoot. So it took me about 2 days to kind of prep for this. Mm-hmm. You know, if I have more looks or more models, then that kind of is determinant on, you know, the length of time that it takes to prep. But I usually say that for any photographer that's asking me, I need at least about 2 to 5 days kind of lead time to be able to really kind of do my best in terms of feeling prepared for a shoot.
Yeah, and then when you're returning it, how many days does that take?
It depends on how much help I have. Mm-hmm. So if I have an assistant and we can both kind of be working on returns, that cuts the time in half. I'd say it usually takes about 2 to 3 days to do returns. Sometimes I can bang it out in 1 day if it's, again, a smaller shoot. But, you know, there's definitely a lot of kind of prep and post work that goes into preparing for a shoot.
I think for a long time I thought that photographers had the hardest job because there's like, we set up the shoot, we create mood boards, we do the photo shoot, and then afterwards we have retouching. But after I started talking with different stylists and learning about how much work goes into actually pulling and returning, I was like, oh, okay, so there's so much work for everyone on a team. But I definitely have a lot of respect for my stylists.
Oh, well, there's a lot of work that goes around for everybody. And, I think it's kind of one of those things that unless you're really kind of in somebody else's shoes, you don't really realize kind of the scale and scope of work. I mean, it was kind of the same thing for me when I first started off. I didn't really realize the full scale of doing like retouching and, kind of all the pre-work that goes into planning a shoot. And then now kind of when I split my time doing production work for shoots and then styling them, you definitely begin to grow an appreciation for other people's jobs.
That's cool to hear. I like that perspective a lot. Can you talk about when you are on set, what does your role look like then? Because you've already pulled all the clothes.
Yeah, so it really, again, kind of depends on the amount of team members that are there. So if I'm doing a shoot, say for an advertising client, a lot of times there is like a creative director or an art director that's on set that kind of is the point person for giving direction. But a lot of times with editorial work, it's a much more scaled back team. So I kind of will jump into the role of kind of art directing or creative directing alongside with the photographer. And then also too, like it's generally like making sure that everything looks right on set. Like, you can have the best laid plans when it comes to outfits, but until you actually have it on the model, have it on set, you never know what it's gonna actually end up looking like.
Right.
So there's always a lot of tweaks and changes that we will do kind of in the moment on set.
It's always, I love having a stylist on set just because I feel like I can focus on the overall picture and not have to worry about those tiny details that I might miss just because like my stylist, you particularly, are so in tune with everything that like there's just lots of details that you spot that I might not necessarily see because I'm looking at a million other things. So.
Yeah, well, I think that there's definitely always kind of something that everybody is focused on. So like hair and makeup will always be focused on the hair and makeup.
Right.
Stylists will typically always be focused on the wardrobe. And so then the photographer kind of is always looking at the overall picture or at the lighting specifically. So I think it's kind of always nice to be able to work on teams where everybody feels like they can kind of speak up and say like, hey, I love kind of the direction we're going in, but this might not look quite right, and I think that really kind of one of the keys to being a photographer is making sure that you are creating a safe space for all your creatives to be able to say something. Now, that also means too that you have to be the captain of the ship and, not let the entire, team run over you too. But, I think really, especially with editorials, like we're all there for a creative purpose and it's really to create the best product possible.
Right. And then for test shoots too, like the purpose is that everyone on the team benefits from it, right?
Yeah, so you want, the model wants to be able to get great images, hair and makeup wants to be able to get great images, stylists want to be able to get great images, and of course, the photographer does too. And I think, especially with test shoots, usually you have a much younger or green staff or team in general. And so, I think sometimes it is hard to find that balance of being able to speak up or, to say really what you want to say and lead a team. So I think that it really kind of benefits everyone when you can kind of really sit down and listen to what everyone is saying.
I'm glad to hear that. And this is a question that I'm asked all the time by photographers is how to reach out to stylists. Is there any etiquette that you prefer?
It's funny because I get this a lot from photographers, and every stylist is different, but for me, I don't really have a preferred preference. I mean, sometimes people contact me on Swipecast, sometimes people DM me on Instagram, sometimes people will find my website and then email me directly. And I don't really think that I have a preference over the mode one way or the other. But for me, kind of really what it comes down to and deciding like who to work with is I usually will not do a shoot never having directly verbally spoken or met with a photographer. I really always want to make sure that like we're going to have kind of a good vibe and that, you know, we're going to be able to communicate properly. I mean, for me, communication is one of the most important things when it comes to doing a shoot. And of course that always comes the more you work with people, but I think that you should really kind of have at least that initial meetup with someone.
That you guys
connect. Just to make sure. I mean, because there are plenty of photographers that are super talented, but like our personalities might not gel as well. And you know, there might be another stylist that's a better fit for them. And you don't always necessarily know that just by looking at somebody's work. Like maybe your aesthetic or your work vibes kind of gel well, but then your personalities don't. Or, you know, kind of on the flip side, maybe your personalities gel really well, but then you just have completely different aesthetics. So you kind of have to find that person that matches well with you. It's kind of like dating. I mean,
totally.
It's like,
that's how I see it too.
You have to find the people that like you really feel like you connect with.
And sometimes you like kind of test it out a few times before being like, oh, this person is the one. And for me, it's like, oh my gosh, like such a magical feeling when you do find someone that you connect with both aesthetically and personality wise.
Then you hold on to them for a long time.
That's why I haven't let you go. And then just final question, any advice for photographers kind of starting in the fashion industry or trying to do their first fashion editorial?
You know, I think mood boarding is really important. It's kind of one of the things that I said is like a great intro when you are like looking to like find a stylist in terms of showing what your vision is. And, you know, I think one of the things too that we've kind of talked in depth about a lot of times is just kind of the way that a stylist sees a mood board versus the way that a photographer does. You know, a lot of times, you know, you will send me kind of a mood board of what you see like the overall vision, or sometimes too, I feel like photographers tend to go for like lighting and mood when they're putting together mood boards, but like it's not really necessarily consistent with like the styling aspect of it. So this is just a tip for any starting out stylists too, is it's really great to then kind of work on a mood board off of kind of what the photographer has sent you. That's more from a styling perspective, and then you can kind of then collaborate back and forth. I mean, I know a lot of times when we shoot, I think we probably go for like at least 2 or 3 different iterations of a mood board before we really kind of end up lining up with the final product. And I think that that makes our shoots clearer overall, because then we can really say like, okay, this is the lighting and aesthetic that we want to go for, but this is kind of more of the cohesive styling elements that we want to have for the look. So I think that having that dialogue with mood boards is a really great way for new stylist photographer combinations.
And then to kind of build that relationship, I think the more you work together, and I know we've had this as well, like we start to understand more of how we work together, how we communicate, and now it's just so nice because I know you know exactly what I like, what my vision is, what my aesthetic is. And so it makes it so we don't have to have as much communication. There's still a lot.
It's like weirdly we communicate more, but then we like verbally say less.
Yes, exactly, right. So it's fun that down the line as you build relationships, it just becomes easier and easier.
I mean, it's again, I feel like using that adage of like, it's like a relationship. It really is, because you learn people's communication styles, you learn different aesthetics. Like I know like when I'm like pulling things, I'm like, oh, that's an Emily dress.
I love that.
She's gonna like that. You know, so you learn what people like and don't like, or you know, what their communication style is.
At a shoot a few months back, you told me that my style is opulence meets grunge, and I had never seen it that way, and I'm now so attached to it. I'm like, that's exactly what it is. Because every single shoot, unintentionally, that's what I'm pulling in. So it's cool that you also see parts of my work that I'm not necessarily seeing. So I've definitely learned a lot from you. Cool, well, I think that is it. Thank you so much, Jessie.
This was so much fun.
I know, and so now we actually get to the really fun part, which is diving into the shoot. So why don't we go look at some outfits?
Cool, sounds good.
Okay, Jessie, so this is a lot of clothes. This is so exciting to see, and I really just love all of these colors.
Aw, thanks. Well, they're very you colors.
That's true.
So basically, I kind of pulled some of my favorite stuff here in the front, based off of kind of your mood board and what we had kind of discussed. I kind of was feeling like this like 70s rocker chick meets like David Bowie kind of vibes.
Yeah, a little bit of opulence mixed in
A
there.
little bit of opulence mixed with some Victorian
Yep,
situation. So this guy is completely sheer. I know it's kind of hard to see right now.
That's beautiful.
But it does have a slip, but I really would like to pair it with like a black bodysuit.
Okay.
So you kind of really see the silhouette of the model, and we'll be able to get some great movement in there.
That's fun.
This is definitely one of the stars of the show.
Very in love with this.
It's very like Ziggy Stardust. But basically, this is kind of like a short little 70s kind of inspired midi dress with a little bit of a lame stripey situation.
The mix of like the turtleneck, the short skirt, the long sleeves, and the shoulders is just everything I love about a dress.
Yeah. So then now we're moving on to this kind of top skirt situation. So I have a bunch of jewelry too that I'm going to show you a little later.
Okay.
That's going to be kind of paired with it to spice it up a bit. Like, I think movement is one of those things that's going to be really key for the shoot. So like anything that like with the first dress or with this top, like I want there to be like a lot of cool fluidity to it. So
oh wow, okay, this is one of my favorite colors right here.
well, I think this is going to look really cool against the backdrop that we have. So this is kind of like a bell bottom, like velvety kind of burgundy pant situation, and then I would love to kind of pair it with like a really sleek little crop top.
That's
and then
so
we
fun.
can kind of pair it with like this fun like oversized faux fur jacket.
great.
And so I think we can kind of really do like a lot of fun plays on this kind of color scheme of like darker colors mixed with the reds and the burgundies, and then we'll pull in some navy jewelry as well, so then that'll kind of tie in some of the navies and stuff with the coat. So it kind of feels like an overall cohesive storyline.
I love the 70s vibes going on, especially in this outfit.
Yeah, this is definitely probably, this one and this guy are like probably our two like big 70s moments. And then we kind of have these two, which are a lot more kind of romantic and kind of goes into that Victorian situation.
Okay, great.
I loved this guy
This
too.
is cute,
This was kind of my like alternate for the fur jacket. Like for some reason that wasn't really working. You know, I think this is kind of a great like alternative to go over top of it.
I love this a lot, but I definitely like the fur.
I know, it's definitely like the star of the rack.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I mean this one kind of feels a little bit more Victorian, whereas the other one feels a little more 70s. So, you know, it kind of just depends on what direction that you really want to go in.
Yeah, okay. So I do love having these four kind of as our main ones.
Yeah.
And then for starters, as you're saying, let's not start with my favorite, just because I'm also kind of warming up myself. So I still really, really love this, but I think this might be a good starting place for us.
Totally. I think that'll be fun.
Cool. Okay, so let's get Brandy changed into this and we will start.
Sounds perfect.
I hope this video was informative to you and that you learned something new. If you did, let me know in the comments below, or if there's something I didn't cover that you would like to know, also let me know. Or you can just say hi and I'm glad to answer those as well. I have loved doing these videos and I will see you guys during the next one.